This 200-pound woman, in order to take revenge on her ex-husband, desperately underwent plastic surgery, with only her eyeballs untouched. 40 days later, her beauty stunned the entire country of H. She was so beautiful that whenever she walked into a cafe, she didn't even need to order. The waitstaff would automatically serve her. Not only did men like her, but even women wondered how someone could be so beautiful. Some even went as far as following her into the dressing room. The woman was so frightened that her face turned pale, forgetting that the person following her was the doctor who had helped with her surgeries. Due to the numerous surgeries, the woman developed mild amnesia. She not only subdued who she believed was a stalker, but even when she saw her pre-surgery self on TV, she didn't recognize it. The woman, named Sarah, was a 200-pound housewife. When she was buying seafood, she accidentally fell into the basin. But she was ridiculed by everyone because being overweight, she couldn't get up, which was quite embarrassing. She kept saying, "It's fine, I don't need help," but no one planned to help her anyway. On the bus, when men saw a beautiful woman get on, their eyes lit up, but when she entered, they made no effort to hide their looks of disgust. She struggled to stand, and the men quickly distanced themselves from her. When it was time to get off, she didn't choose the stairs and struggled for a long time, while people around her looked on with a mix of pity. When she finally got home, her husband showed no concern for her struggles and often spent his time watching videos to avoid interacting with her. They had been married for 7 years, and he had never come home during that time. In reality, none of this was the reason Sarah decided to risk her life to become beautiful. But on this day, seeing her husband, who was supposed to be in a faraway country, standing in front of her, she felt both despair and helplessness. After it was over, the third sister even invited Sarah out for coffee. The woman said, "I'm so sorry you had to find out this way." At first, Sarah desperately asked them to break up, but when the woman refused and tried to leave, Sarah's tone turned to pleading. Sarah, filled with regret, desperately chased after the woman. She then used one of her usual tricks. She tripped herself. Kind-hearted Sarah took her to the hospital, but the woman's agent called the police, falsely accusing Sarah of assault. Fortunately, at that moment, her husband arrived. Sarah hid behind him like a fleeing princess, but to her surprise, her husband was there to break up with her. No matter how much she begged, it was useless. Desperate, she returned home, only to receive no comfort. Instead, she was met with more ridicule. Her sister-in-law casually said, "I completely understand how my brother feels at that moment." Sarah realized that her mother-in-law and sisters-in-law had known about this all along. They never wanted to be a family with her. With no will to live, Sarah decided to run away from home. But after several days of being gone, not a single person called her. Despairing, she returned to her doorstep only to see Chaeyoung laughing and chatting with her in-laws, looking every bit like a family. Her heart turned to ashes. With nowhere to go, Sarah drove aimlessly while crying. At that moment, a car came rushing straight toward her from the opposite direction. Instinctively, Sarah turned the wheel, crashing into the guardrail and plunging into the sea. Miraculously, Sarah managed to climb ashore, but she saw her family had already assumed she had died in an accident. The grief of her birth family was indifference of her in-laws. With her heart dead to the world, Sarah decided to change her appearance and take revenge on that scumbag. She begged the doctor to give her full-body plastic surgery. At first, the doctor named Tae-hee refused, but seeing Sarah's overwhelming despair, Tae-hee couldn't bear it and agreed. They gave Sarah a perfect body, turning her into the #1 beauty in Korea. She was determined to use this beautiful shell to exact her revenge. After analyzing her situation, Sarah realized that, in her ex-husband's heart, the fat Sarah was worth less than even 2 mosquitoes. But could she really take revenge on such a cunning man just by relying on her beautiful body? Sarah's resolve strengthened, and she sought the doctor's help to further her plans. She enriched herself with knowledge, ready to be a cultured woman capable of providing refined services. She wanted to always be prepared, studying everything from humanistic topics to social, political, strategic, and aggressive approaches. As a woman, she was determined to transform herself completely. Not only that, but she also had to maintain a perfectly healthy body minus 10% body fat and a 24-inch waist. After exercising for a while, she exceeded her goals. Excited, Sarah asked for the reward the doctor had promised her, which likely refers to a type of food. As the doctor approached with chopsticks, there was nothing left on the plate. Sarah excused herself to organize some equipment. After setting everything in place, she heard a strange sound. She told the doctor that it felt like the silicone in her chest had ruptured. At that moment, the TV was on, showing her ex-husband and Chaeyoung holding a press conference to announce their relationship and their wedding, which would take place in 3 weeks. Sarah couldn't accept it. She stormed out, while the doctor, watching Chaeyoung on TV, had a look of longing in his eyes. Sarah ran back to her ex-husband's house, standing in the same place, watching the same scene unfold. Looking at them now, Sarah shed tears of despair. When she got back, she discovered the doctor's secret. It turned out that Che Yan was his wife and the woman he loved most, and he believed it was Sarah's husband who had taken her away from him. That was why he helped Sarah with her revenge. Now, they were planning to tear them apart. Soon after, Sarah regained her confidence, determined to make her ex-husband notice her again. She specially attended the charity event organized by her ex-husband, hoping to leave a deep impression on him. However, she was too scared of being recognized to take the first step. The doctor, remotely guiding her, encouraged her to muster up the courage. Finally, she used the attraction of food to motivate her. At the mention of food, her eyes lit up. At that moment, her newfound confidence caught her ex-husband's attention. The doctor continued giving remote instructions, telling Sarah to flip her hair, show off her collarbone, and give flirtatious glances. However, her ex-husband only gave her a dismissive glance before walking away, causing the plan to fail. The doctor then began the strongest plan, having Sarah donate $100 million at the charity event to win her ex-husband's favor. As expected, when the list of donors was announced, Sarah received attention from everyone, and her ex-husband even came over to greet her. At that moment, Sarah realized that she still loved him, so much so that she got nervous and started hiccuping. Her ex-husband had a server bring her a caramel and warm water. The naive Sarah thought her ex-husband still loved her. But when Cheon saw Sarah chatting with her husband PP, she got jealous and immediately pulled the man away. When Sarah got home, she was filled with a sense of defeat and couldn't understand why, despite becoming so beautiful, she still couldn't attract her husband. It must be said men understand men best. They decided to start with her ex-husband's hobbies like fishing. Sure enough, it worked, and Sarah caught her ex-husband's attention. When her ex-husband noticed Sarah struggling with the fishing gear, he came over to help, hand in hand. The male lead, who was watching from a distance, saw the situation going well and felt pleased with the atmosphere. However, he didn't expect that this woman, Sarah, would help her ex-husband carry the fishing tools by herself, leaving him stunned. The male lead almost lost his temper from afar. Sarah quickly found an excuse to put down the tools. While eating, Sarah discovered her ex-husband's bracelet. She knew this bracelet was from the woman who cared for her most, but she had passed away last month. As Sarah was about to return the bracelet to her ex-husband, it accidentally fell into the water. Sarah impulsively jumped into the water to retrieve it, instantly earning her ex-husband's admiration. He even looked forward to their next meeting. Tae-hee received news that his friend had returned to the country. It turned out that not only was Tae-hee not a doctor, but the luxurious house they lived in also belonged to his friend. The two of them packed their things overnight, preparing to move into the house next to Sarah's ex-husband. After the two finished packing, they had no choice but to spend the night on the streets. Sarah's nature remained the same. She was polite, even when approached by strangers. But the male lead wasn't one to be easily provoked. The doctor, feeling helpless, had to compromise. They moved into the apartment above Sarah's ex-in-laws and became neighbors. Ever since the fishing trip with Sarah, Kang Jun's mind had been filled with the image of her diving into the water to retrieve a bracelet. Lost in thought, he didn't notice Che Yan approaching him. Che Yan, still unaware of her situation, returned home to hear her in-laws praising a woman named Sarah for helping them play the piano and assisting them. When her younger sister mentioned that Sarah had moved in next door, Kang Jun couldn't resist calling Sarah to arrange a meeting. But just then, he saw a call from Che Yan, which he promptly ignored, throwing his phone on the bed as if he hadn't seen it. Coincidentally, Che Yan, who was driving by, saw this scene. Sarah deliberately looked at Che Yan. The doctor also saw that Che Yan had realized the truth. They both thought this action would cause Che Yan and Kang Jun to break up, but to their surprise, Che Yan didn't make a scene or cancel the wedding. She even showed up at the in-laws' house ahead of time. In the end, it became clear that Che Yan was more cunning than anyone had expected. Faced with Kang Jun's wandering heart, Che Yan took out the wedding ring and sweet-talked him, making it impossible for him to resist. Hearing this, Sarah panicked and quickly suggested borrowing money to buy clothes for her date tomorrow, wanting to look better than Che Yan. However, the doctor presented a bill Sarah already owed him over $3 million in the city. Left with no choice, Sarah tried to pawn her wedding ring, but couldn't bear to part with it since it was a wedding gift. Seeing her hesitation, the doctor came up with another idea. Sarah, both excited and nervous about her date with her ex-husband, meticulously planned even down to the perfect 45-degree side profile smile, which made Kang Jun's heart race with passion. "If you don't mind, I'll take off my jacket," Kang Jun said. Sarah couldn't help but swallow as she eyed his physique. To facilitate their reunion, the male lead deliberately created a romantic atmosphere, and with the mood just right, Sparks were about to fly between Sarah and her ex-husband. However, as Sarah lay on the bed, overcome with emotion, she burst into tears, causing Kang Jun to freeze. He thought she was crying because things were moving too fast, which only made him feel more deeply for her. He put aside his lustful thoughts and decided to truly cherish her. When nothing happened and Kang Jun returned, Tae-hee found it unbelievable. Tae-hee, who had been spending time daily with Sarah, watching her do yoga, struggled to control his feelings. Originally, he planned to give lipstick to Sarah to help her win back her ex-husband, but he ended up falling for her instead. Seeing her fiery red lips, Tae-hee tried hard to restrain himself, leaving Sarah puzzled. In reality, Tae-hee wasn't a doctor but the crown prince of the outstanding group. As a child, Tae-hee had a near-death experience and became homeless, only to be adopted by Chae-yeon's father. To avoid being found by his enemies, he had been living under a different name ever since. Meanwhile, Chae-yeon noticed Kang Jun's growing impatience towards her. Realizing that her position was in danger, she had thought that by eliminating the ex-wife she could take the top spot. However, Sarah, a new rival, had unexpectedly entered the picture. Furious, she arranged to meet Sarah. Sarah stormed downstairs, seeing this as her chance for revenge, thinking to herself, "It's not like I'm going to war." Tae-hee, who liked Chae-yeon, wasn't happy and wanted to compete with Sarah, but their duel was interrupted by a phone call. When Sarah arrived at the meeting spot, she was ready for a showdown. She kept calm as Chae-yeon approached, though inside she was boiling with the desire to kill her. As Chae-yeon sat down, she casually brought up the fact that fat Sarah had been abandoned by Kang Jun and, out of shame, had committed suicide. She emphasized that her relationship with Kang Jun was no ordinary one, and Sarah was just a fleeting love interest who could never defeat her. Chae-yeon's words only strengthened Sarah's resolve for revenge. She met with Kang Jun again. She sees Kang Jun playing with a lighter. This action suddenly reminded her of the details of the fiery accident. She recalled that the car coming toward her had deliberately turned on its headlights, intending to kill her. The thought made her tremble. She remembered Chae-yeon telling her earlier that day that it was a suicide. Determined to uncover the truth behind her death, Sarah decided to investigate. Sarah rushed to the public office and took advantage of the break to gather information. She began to suspect that her misfortunes were part of a larger scheme and wanted to dig deeper into the truth. Just when she didn't know where to start, both she and the doctor received an invitation from Chae-yeon. They decided to work together to uncover the truth. The doctor used the excuse of playing chess with Kang Jun to keep both Chae-yeon and Kang Jun occupied, while Sarah found a reason to explore the second floor. During a conversation with her sister-in-law, Sarah learned about a will she had written before her car accident, which had been sent from her own email. Surprised by the lengthy document, she discovered that she had left all her assets to her husband, something she found shocking. Sarah rushed to her ex-husband's bedroom and found a property transfer contract. It revealed that Sarah's late relative had purchased a 5,000 square meter plot of land, which had now been transferred to her ex-husband. Meanwhile, the doctor managed to extract more information, learning that everything had been transferred under Chae-yeon's name. Sarah, believing her husband would never harm her, was convinced that this was all part of Chae-yeon's scheme. However, the next day when she saw her ex-husband's car, she suddenly remembered the details of the accident. It turned out that her beloved husband was the one who had tried to kill her. He had not only staged the car accident, but also forged her will, transferring all her assets to himself. Unable to accept the truth, Sarah fainted on the spot. The depths of her husband's cruelty became obvious. He had deliberately framed her for the accident to gain control over her wealth. Even her mother, who had once cherished her, had not been spared, as her husband had secretly purchased the house where her mother lived. The woman was in despair, unable to understand why her beloved husband, whom she had never wronged, would frame her and even turn against her own mother. The cruelest men often find the most suitable partners, and the scheming woman, Chae-yeon, was at the scene when the incident involving Sarah occurred. On the day of the incident, Chae-yeon witnessed two people arguing and followed Sarah outside, unknowingly witnessing the entire process of the man's plot against Sarah. She chose not to report it, seeing it as a declaration and a threat towards Kang Jun. The next day, Kang Jun and Chae-yeon unexpectedly held a wedding ceremony. Sarah's mother could not believe that just 3 months after her daughter's death, her son-in-law was remarrying. Furious, she rushed to the wedding to disrupt it, only to be confined by the ruthless man. Watching her mother being bullied made Sarah erupt. She quickly subdued the security guard. The male lead tried to persuade Chae-yeon, but she revealed she already knew his intentions and that feelings couldn't be forced. With such a cold-hearted man, she decided to sabotage their marriage and take down the entire family. The male lead, overconfident, began collecting evidence against them, aiming to imprison the man for killing his wife. The following day, Sarah pretended to be considerate towards her in-laws, finding ways to appeal to them. While they were eating, she secretly gathered evidence of her sister-in-law's involvement in a pyramid scheme and her elder sister-in-law's gambling habits, even taking photos of her mother-in-law's outings to send to her father-in-law. She also stealthily placed a listening device in their new home and pretended to drop her earring to create an opportunity. Watch closely as this woman systematically dismantles her former in-laws. First, she gathers evidence piece by piece, then sends the most explosive information directly to the head of the household's phone. As expected, the old-fashioned returns home furious, accusing his wife of being shameless for engaging in such behavior at her age. Next, Sarah accidentally hands over a document revealing her sister-in-law's outstanding debt to the father-in-law. To protect herself, the older sister-in-law exposes that the younger one has been involved in illegal publishing activities. In just a few moves, the seemingly harmonious family descends into chaos. When the newlywed bride returns from her honeymoon, she's greeted by this messy scene. The younger sisters are kneeling on the ground, and the mother-in-law refuses to come out of her room. Feeling deeply hurt, Chae-yo is ordered by her husband to cook, leading her to believe that from now on, she will be bullied every day and soon lose her position in the household. This was all part of Sarah's plan. She had deliberately delivered an elaborate meal, including army stew, pretending to be a perfect homemaker, which only highlighted the new bride's selfishness. Her ex-husband and Chae-yo looked at Sarah with surprise, unaware that this was just the beginning of her revenge. Sarah's plan was not only to bring down the family but also to break up the couple and send the man who tried to kill her to prison. Chae-yo, on the other hand, believed her husband's unfaithfulness was the reason Sarah had entered their home, while the man dismissed Chae-yo as being unreasonable. Meanwhile, the younger sister confronted the man about receiving a wedding invitation that turned out to be a virus bomb. It was Tae-hee who had hacked into Kang Jun's computer, planting a timed virus that would send the virus bomb to everyone's devices the day they returned. One by one, every computer around Kang Jun was disabled. When Kang Jun rushed to the office, he was completely stunned. His furious boss harshly scolded him, as the virus had ruined important files needed for a shareholder meeting in 5 days. While Kang Jun scrambled at work to deal with the crisis, Chae-yo was in their room and found an earring that Sarah had left behind. Furious, she immediately called, accusing him of letting Sarah into their room. Already stressed and annoyed, Kang Jun found her accusations ridiculous. This was only the first step of Sarah's plan. Chae-yo's mother-in-law made a statement about how her 2 younger daughters-in-law were too tired from work and asked Chae-yo to help with cleaning. Chae-yo was told to clean the kitchen and also to make dinner while she was at it. Chae-yo was so angry she wanted to curse. She didn't marry into this family to be treated like a servant. On the other side, the man's ex-wife returned looking charming, determined to take revenge on her former husband. She first dressed up and went to the company, bringing tools to help rescue the man's career and support him through his crisis. She prepared lavish bento boxes and even thoughtfully delivered clothes for him. The man couldn't help but ask why she was doing all this. The woman boldly confessed, "I love you," successfully reigniting his feelings for her. She stayed until late, and when she saw Chae-yo walk into the company, she intentionally bumped into her. The ex-wife cruelly said that they would divorce within 3 weeks. She could only take out her anger on her husband. She naturally didn't greet him warmly and confronted him. The man felt the woman was being unreasonable and vented his frustrations. Chae-yo couldn't understand why this marriage wasn't turning out the way she had imagined. Unbeknownst to her, Sarah had been eavesdropping on everything. She orchestrated another accidental encounter, using her deep knowledge of her ex-husband to predict his reactions. As expected, the man behaved exactly as Sarah had anticipated, falling right into her trap. Finally, on this day, her husband began to appease her, because he needed her to attend an important party with him. But she didn't know, a big surprise awaited her at the party. Meanwhile, the ex-wife Sarah and Tae-hee were also preparing for the event. They planned to expose the man's true identity at the party. Sarah found her mother, but because she had undergone plastic surgery, she looked completely different. Her mother didn't even recognize her. She took out a photo of herself and her ex-husband and showed it to her mother, falsely claiming that she was the victim and had been deceived by the man. Her mother, holding the photo, publicly accused the man of being a scumbag, throwing insults at him with every curse word imaginable. The man, feeling guilty and afraid of causing a bigger scene, tried to take the 2 of them outside, but the argument escalated. Chae-yo grabbed the photo, claiming it was fake, and ordered them to be thrown out. At that moment, the boss arrived. Just then, Sarah pressed a switch, and suddenly, countless photos of Sarah and the ex-husband showered down. The room descended into chaos. The boss, seeing the photos, glared at the man as if he wanted to kill him with his eyes. The man, terrified, lowered his head. That night, when they returned home, the place was a mess. Chae-yo told him that after her father learned of his scandals, he had thrown his mother and sister out of the house. Thinking of what happened that day, Chae-yo couldn't hold back and slapped him. The man, knowing he was at fault, didn't say anything and immediately left the house. He went to Sarah's place and discovered that his family was also there, having been kicked out. This man was the second heir of the Korean WG group. His name is Min Ha-yeok, Tae-hee's stepbrother. Observing Sarah outside with interest, the man couldn't help but smile, finding this woman genuine. When they met again, she hurriedly left and accidentally bumped into him. As he looked at her, he felt a strange familiarity, realizing she was the woman he had seen putting on makeup in front of his car. He mistakenly thought she was there to work at his company and asked her which department she belonged to. She quickly replied that she was a security guard. Faced with this charming woman, the heir surprisingly found himself captivated and immediately asked his secretary to investigate her background. After several days of digging, the secretary could only uncover one piece of information: she was an ordinary person. While there seemed to be no progress, they discovered a video on television showing the woman eating. It turned out that after dealing with her former in-laws, she was satisfying and delicious food. What surprised them was the way she ate, which captivated a group of admirers who snapped pictures and posted them online, giving a name to her as Food Goddess. As her videos gained popularity, the internet quickly recognized her as a beauty. A young man in a restaurant even recognized her as the attractive woman from a previous dining experience and uploaded her video, causing her eating clips to trend online. Viewers referred to her as the new internet sensation. Meanwhile, a television reporter also stumbled upon her videos, and people were sharing them widely. All major entertainment media outlets were searching for Sarah. The heir of the WG group finally noticed his girl, but he was completely unaware that she had become an internet sensation while she was busy planning her revenge. They both went out shopping. The man suddenly received a text message from his dead wife, claiming she was watching him on a date, which nearly scared him to death. While driving, Sarah accidentally pulled out the deceased's wedding ring and photos, causing the man to almost crash. He thought he was seeing ghosts. Later that evening, when he prepared to drive again, someone intentionally turned on their car headlights in front of him, and he received another message from his dead wife, saying she was right in front of him, imitating the way the man had killed his wife. Driven by rage, he sped towards Sarah. The man was now on edge and rushed out to confront who it was. The woman quickly knocked out Kang Jun and kidnapped the man, using the voice of his dead wife to interrogate him about why he had framed her. Kang Jun, feeling cornered, angrily declared that even if the woman were still alive, he would kill her a second time. They successfully recorded Kang Jun confessing to killing his wife. In the midst of the confusion, the figure of the dead wife appeared, and Kang Jun fainted on the spot. It turned out to be Sarah dressed in her old clothes. Sarah's revenge was finally fulfilled. The main character, Tae-hee, collected all the evidence and handed it to his secretary, instructing him to submit it to the police first thing in the morning. Meanwhile, Sarah had successfully gained the trust of her in-laws, and they sent the unconscious Kang Jun home, just as Chae-yeon, who hadn't returned to her in-laws for several days, happened to arrive. Seeing Sarah taking care of Kang Jun in the bedroom, Chae-yeon angrily questioned Sarah about her audacity in entering her room. As Chae-yeon sought to settle the score with Sarah, she began to suspect Sarah, wondering why he was targeting her marriage. After secretly following Sarah, she discovered her husband, Tae-hee, was with Sarah. She decided to investigate the truth about the dead woman, Fat Sarah. Initially, she assumed Sarah had siblings, but from her sister-in-law, she learned that Sarah was an only child. With a sixth sense, she recognized the deceased woman in a photograph as Sarah. Holding the photo, she recalled that the doctor brother had performed surgery on the formerly overweight woman. Chae-yeon then realized the implications of what she had discovered. She also found out that her husband was actually the heir of the W group. It was hard to believe that she had overlooked someone richer than Kang Jun. To take advantage of this new revelation, she quickly pretended to be sick and went to Tae-hee to take care of herself, creating a world for the two of them. While Tae-hee was driving, she feigned discomfort and leaned on his shoulder. However, Tae-hee wasn't fooled. He knew this was a ploy, so he called his secretary to help send her home. Kang Jun, having been reported for assault, was detained at the police station. As he recalled the details, he sent someone to secretly investigate Sarah, only to find that Sarah was living with Tae-hee. They had colluded to bribe the prosecutor and forged insufficient evidence to release Kang Jun, prompting him to actively seek the truth from Sarah. On the other side, Che-Yan analyzed her strong intuition, concluding that someone was eavesdropping on her home. She actually found a listening device. She collaborated with Kang Jun to understand Sarah's weaknesses and Tae-hee's entire financial situation and family members. Che-Yan then used her identity to help Kang Jun take revenge, while secretly assisting Tae-hee in taking over the Dark Group, aiming to become the lady of the house. She would even casually speak ill of Tae-hee in front of the grandmother, painting herself as kind and gradually leading the grandmother to dislike Tae-hee. If the grandmother turned against Tae-hee, he would be in big trouble. Meanwhile, Tae-hee and Sarah, spending so much time together, began to experience subtle changes in their relationship. Would they end up falling in love with each other? Observing Tae-hee's indifferent behavior, Sarah intentionally changed into a maid's outfit and began cleaning. The shy Tae-hee couldn't look her in the eye and awkwardly tried to focus on his computer, embarrassedly retreating to the sofa. Yet, his gaze never left Sarah. Sarah P decided to strengthen her approach, taking a breath and switching tactics as she started to clean the sofa. Kang Jun became increasingly uncomfortable, unable to help but react loudly. The atmosphere became more tense, and Tae-hee didn't dare to show weakness, thinking to himself, "Doesn't she consider me a man?" As the two spent more time together, Tae-hee wanted to confess to Sarah. However, Sarah, who no longer believed in love, thought that Tae-hee only liked her for her looks. To prove his sincerity, Tae-hee used elite hypnosis, imagining Sarah as she would look at 200 pounds. Unexpectedly, when Tae-hee opened his eyes, he was startled by Sarah's appearance and didn't dare to look at her. Yet he kept insisting that everything was fine. Sarah couldn't help but laugh, deliberately dressing in female clothing like before and cleaning in front of him, getting closer on purpose. In the past, Sarah's closeness would make Tae-hee's heart race, but now, after gaining weight, he was actually afraid of her, hiding in his room and not daring to come out. Then Sarah intentionally made Tae-hee help her with tasks around the house, but he couldn't even look her in the eye, stumbling over himself. Later, Sarah had Tae-hee help her with kneading dough. Yesterday, he had been shy and reluctant to let go of her hand, but today he couldn't dare to approach the heavier Sarah. Watching Tae-hee's fearful expression, Sarah felt indifferent. After all, men were visual creatures, and given that she had spent 8 years in a toxic marriage, she didn't dare to fall in love again, especially facing the kind woman before her. Tae-hee felt a deep sense of heartache. He genuinely wanted to protect Sarah. So just like before, he helped Sarah wipe the flour off her forehead. Now Tae-hee finally understood that his feelings were not just an attraction to the beautiful Sarah, he loved Sarah's inner kindness. At this moment, the two were unaware that danger was closing in step by step. One day, Sarah insisted on participating in a Master Chef competition. As the show's host, Che-Yan deliberately changed the cooking theme, requiring chefs to prepare a dish using seafood and peanuts, knowing from Sarah's ex-husband that Sarah was allergic to peanuts. Che-Yan wanted to see Sarah humiliated, but Sarah remained fearless and completed the competition perfectly. Unwilling to let it go, Che-Yan forced Sarah to eat the peanut dish herself, but nothing happened. Che-Yan began to think the man had deceived her, angrily confronting him. But just as Sarah was about to leave, Kang Jun grabbed her from behind, asking if she was his dead ex-wife. Sarah fainted due to her peanut allergy, and Kang Jun took the opportunity to bring her to a hotel. The wealthy heir Tae-hee intended to propose to Sarah that evening but could not reach her by phone. After tracking her location, he discovered she was at the hotel and successfully rescued the unconscious woman. However, upon seeing Sarah, he was reminded of his previous wife and thought he would never measure up to her. He blamed Sarah without realizing that she was suffering from the effects of her peanut allergy. The next day, Tae-hee saw the program and discovered Sarah had eaten peanuts. Rushing home, he felt guilty upon finding Sarah still unconscious. He called a doctor friend to help, and she eventually recovered. Tae-hee felt responsible, knowing that because of the delayed treatment, Sarah couldn't walk. Still, she had to prepare for the competition. Willing to endure pain, he insisted on cleaning the house and purchasing all the ingredients for the competition. He went to the market and they both found themselves in a war of words across the screen. At that moment, Sarah spotted a large pumpkin behind the male lead, but at the same time, an older woman also noticed it. Both of them reached for it at once. There was no way Tae-hee was going to let someone else take it. A verbal battle began through the screen. While the other woman was distracted, Tae-hee quickly snatched the pumpkin and ran away rejoicing. As they spent more time together, Tae-hee decided to propose to Sarah, revealing his identity as the heir of the WG group. Sarah looked at Tae-hee, who came from such a wealthy background, while she was just a housewife. She felt uneasy but couldn't resist the growing affection. At that point, Kang Jun had already uncovered Sarah's secret about her plastic surgery. Seeing Tae-hee, who was from a rich family, made him unable to stop himself from mocking Sarah, referring to her as the dead fat wife who was still missing and technically not divorced yet. Kang Jun understood that the crises he had faced during this time were all part of a scheme against him. He vowed to stop the wedding between Tae-hee and Sarah. Meanwhile, Tae-hee planned a romantic date in a church setting, with the woman's laughter echoing loudly. He wanted to take her out. Understanding upper-class culture, he wanted to win the woman's affection through gift-giving, but she considered it useless. She intended to teach men how to date, where to go, and what to do. Turning around, the man arrived at the supermarket's free tasting area, finished his sample, and even tasted for the man. The man awkwardly ate it, politely praising it as delicious, wanting to leave quickly, but unexpectedly, a woman took him to the sweet area, finishing her sample while making various sounds. At that moment, they heard about a buy one, get one free promotion. Throughout this process, the woman got ready, took off her shoes, and began to fight with her skills. The man picked up her shoes, watching her get lost among a group of older women. The woman grabbed the product, and the man felt proud to be responsible for so many items at home, unable to help but praise her. They prepared to get married abroad but encountered the ex-husband's obstruction and threats. In the wedding dress store, the ex-husband called and threatened the woman not to be too happy, as they definitely wouldn't get married. The more sweet and happy she was with Tae-hee, the more she feared her ex-husband's ambitions would completely shatter her happiness. Every moment, she was enveloped by strong anxiety. Finally, she decided to take the initiative and strike first, immediately going to her ex-husband's house to expose him for harming his overweight ex-wife, leading to his arrest. This explosive news instantly shocked Kang Jun's mother and sister. Sarah brazenly told her ex-husband that this family still had its own great business, and not only would she take it back, but she would also make his family end up on the streets. After saying this, she arrogantly left, thinking that this way no one would stop her happiness anymore. However, she didn't expect that the woman who liked the male lead would come to create trouble again. Upon learning that Tae-hee wants to marry Sarah, she changed the date of the cooking competition, in which Sarah was participating, to happen the same day as the wedding day. Then she went to the rich Tae-hee's grandmother to complain, saying that the woman was playing both sides and intended to use the grandmother to bring down the situation. Unexpectedly, Min Hyuk was even more anxious than she was to disrupt the wedding. He arrived at the male lead's factory, intending to use this method to hinder the progress of their work and prevent them from getting married abroad. However, Tae-hee and Sarah also rushed to the scene, truly explaining to the old employees how to save the company. Faced with the plotting of Min Hyuk against the company and Tae-hee's efforts to save it, the workers chose to stand with Tae-hee. Min Hyuk's plan failed, and as he was leaving, he accidentally got bumped into by a worker, causing flour to spill on him. The man, seeing himself embarrassed in front of the woman he loved, returned to his room and couldn't help but explode with frustration, vowing to ruin Tae-hee's wedding. Min Hyuk's mother, after reading the report, found her son, but unexpectedly Min Hyuk knew she is coming and cut off his mother, and called the most trusted secretary, who had killed Tae-hee's parents 20 years. This time, he was called to consider the possibility of killing his younger brother Tae-hee. Tae-hee's grandmother was aware of the wedding, urged Sarah to leave her grandson. Tae-hee was also aware of the situation and found himself caught in a trap in a narrow warehouse. The secretary finds Sarah and explains Tae-hee is missing. Using her connections, she located the warehouse. When the two arrived, they couldn't find Tae-hee. They urgently called Tae-hee, only to discover that at that moment, Tae-hee was hidden in a corner, covered with a plastic bag. When she trembled as she opened the bag, she saw that the male lead was injured. At this moment, Sarah began to regret, feeling that her existence had harmed the man she loved the most. When Sarah took her unconscious boyfriend to the hospital, his grandmother looked at her precious grandson, who was seriously hurt, with full hatred towards Sarah. She believed that Sarah's presence had put Tae-hee's life in danger and banned her from approaching the hospital room. Outside the room, Sarah was anxious and silently prayed for Tae-hee. After everyone had left, she dared to go inside and secretly take care of the unconscious Tae-hee. On the other side, the new president who injured Tae-hee shamelessly held a press conference, claiming that as the son of the WG Group leader, he would thoroughly investigate the matter. He aimed to take away the person Tae-hee cherished the most. He found Sarah and suggested that she go abroad for her studies. Sarah felt confused and was told that if she continued to stay close to Tae-hee, it would be very dangerous. She recalled that almost everyone around her wanted her to leave Tae-hee. Just as Sarah was still hesitating, her ex-husband threatened her again. Sarah slapped her ex-husband hard. Thanks to Sarah's careful nursing, Taehee's health was recovering quickly. However, she couldn't help but think that her presence had endangered Taehee's life. Ultimately, Sarah accepted the overseas invitation from the new star director and chose to leave for Taehee's safety, requesting confidentiality, hoping that no one would know. The ambitious president quietly confirmed that his plan was successful because he was the only one who knew Sarah's address. He could easily follow her and gain her trust. After Taehee was discharged from the hospital, the naive Sarah cleaned up her room and prepared a final dinner, yet she couldn't bring herself to initiate the breakup. To protect her boyfriend, the female lead pretended to study abroad and took her luggage to her mother's rural home. However, she was unexpectedly discovered by Min Hyuk, who found her address. Even her ex-husband, who had once abandoned her, secretly followed her. Forced to break up with Taehee, Sarah kept herself as busy as possible during the day. At night, she couldn't help but think of her boyfriend, and Taehee was not doing any better. Not only was he haunted by hallucinations at home, but he also kept a photo of Sarah and talked to himself, engaged in the pain of heartbreak, neglecting even his work. After Sarah's ex-husband was reported for his scandals, he became infamous and was suspended from his company for 3 months. Unwilling to let things end like this, he planned to take risks, wanting Sarah to admit she was still alive to prove he hadn't committed murder. The ambitious president, Min Hyuk, knew that Sarah was pretending to be studying abroad, so he frequently tried to please Sarah. Kang Joon discovered that Min Hyuk had feelings for Sarah and decided to secretly follow him. Taehee, missing his girlfriend, couldn't let go of Sarah, so he contacted her best friend for her address. At that moment, Sarah happened to call her best friend. When Taehee saw the incoming call, he realized it wasn't from abroad and finally learned that Sarah had returned home. The 3 men headed to Sarah's place to stop her. Taehee was the first to feel that something was off as he watched the busy and happy Sarah, which made him even sadder. Kang Joon also successfully found out Sarah's address. At this moment, Taehee was unwilling to let things end like this. He couldn't help but drive back, but only found Sarah chatting with someone. When everyone left, Sarah's ex-husband unexpectedly appeared and threatened her, claiming he would prove he hadn't killed her, or else he would come every day. To stop being controlled by the new president, Sarah decided to fight back. She secretly held a press conference, exposing her past identity as a 200-pound person. To become beautiful, she transformed herself, and without any surgery, she showcased her journey. She also planned to reveal the news about her husband's previous murder, property seizure, and his subsequent remarriage. However, she only revealed part of the story. The new president, Min Hyuk, felt particularly angry when he saw Sarah's actions. To avoid the new president, Sarah quickly left the scene. Due to Sarah's genuine report, people were all curious. Chae-yeon, who had always used to threaten Sarah, hurried to find Sarah, wanting to know what Sarah really wanted. Sarah arrogantly replied that she would tear apart Chae-yeon's ugly body, leaving Chae-yeon trembling with anger. Chae-yeon thought she would expose Sarah's fake identity first, but unexpectedly Sarah got the jump on her. Now, Chae-yeon had nothing to hold against Sarah. Sarah's in-laws hurriedly arranged to meet Sarah, bringing gifts to curry favor with her, saying they had deeply reflected on their past actions and begged Sarah not to expose the fact that their husband had a murderous intent. Otherwise, they would have no way to face others. Sarah looked at her in-laws, who had cared for her for 8 years, and saw their selfishness, only thinking of themselves. Sarah couldn't forgive them. She reflected on everything she had suffered. As a witness, Chae-yeon not only failed to save herself but also helped her ex-husband cover up the truth about his murderous intent and took away what was rightfully Sarah's. Sarah decided to turn the tables and reveal Chae-yeon's true face. She intentionally chose to go on a ridiculous show hosted by evil Chae-yeon to tell all the truths. At that moment, Chae-yeon was so scared upon seeing Sarah. During the live broadcast of the program, Sarah sincerely stated that she hoped everyone wouldn't live like a fool, ultimately being killed. The audience was stunned. Sarah intentionally continued speaking as the topic was about to be changed. Seeing this, the host quickly pressed on with more questions. Sarah revealed that her ex-husband, for the sake of a woman and wealth, had killed her. That woman not only witnessed the crime scene but also failed to save her. Moreover, she was present in this program. Chae-yeon's face was exposed on the show. The woman was so scared that she hurried to hide in the bathroom after hearing her colleagues curse her for her actions, fearing that her career would be in jeopardy. After the police received the report, they arrested Sarah's ex-husband, but unexpectedly he had already fled. With the exposure of this incident, Chae-yeon's career as a celebrity was completely ruined. She spent her days hiding at her brother's house, both angry and crying. Suddenly, Sarah went out and, while at home, decided to propose to Tae-hee, who had been by her side through tough times. Hearing that she was getting back together with Tae-hee made Kang Joon furious. Meanwhile, a scheming CEO plotted to kill Tae-hee. He intended to use the same tricks he had employed in the fire incident 20 years ago. Once Tae-hee was dead, the CEO planned to take over the entire group and even claim Sarah for himself, framing Sarah's ex-husband for everything. It was a cunning plan, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Meanwhile, Kang Joon, who had become a criminal, planned to use the divorce papers to exchange for money. Tae-hee handed Kang Joon the prepared money and passport. Seeing his plan succeed, Kang Joon quickly signed the divorce papers and fled. Just as Tae-hee was about to attend the shareholders' meeting, he was surrounded by thugs sent by the scheming CEO. Confident in his plan, the CEO believed that Tae-hee would never make it to the meeting. He was certain he would be elected chairman of the board. However, when the shareholder votes were announced, 67% opposed his rise to power. It turned out that the shareholders had already been informed of Min Hyuk's criminal activities, which included framing the top board member and stealing Tae-hee's credit for developing a new rice ball product at Tae-hee's food company. Furious, the scheming CEO claimed that Tae-hee was dead and that no one was more qualified to be chairman than him. Just as the shareholders were discussing, Tae-hee made a dramatic entrance. He had long suspected Kang Joon's conspiracy and had alerted the police on his way to the meeting. Seeing the police, the thugs fled. In a public confrontation, Tae-hee's grandmother's secretary exposed Min Hyuk's mother's involvement in the fire and murder 20 years ago that killed Tae-hee's parents. The police immediately arrested Han Min Hyuk and his mother. Tae-hee received 81% support during the re-vote at the shareholders' meeting. Meanwhile, Sarah's ex-husband, who was on the run, thought he could escape, but little did he know that Tae-hee had already planted a tracker in his bag and tampered with his passport. When Kang Joon tried to buy a ticket using the fake passport, the staff immediately alerted the authorities. The only disappointment was that because Sarah didn't die, they couldn't hold Chae-yeon legally responsible. Supported by her brother, Chae-yeon went abroad to study. Finally, Tae-hee and Sarah received the blessing of Tae-hee's grandmother and had the wedding they had long dreamed of. The drama ended perfectly. Thanks for watching. See you next time.